Test 1 2 3. Test 1 2 3. 1 2 3 4. Test right here. Right here. Right here. Okay. Hi, everyone. Tom Kreager with the Tennessean. Welcome to the Bootleg. It's week 11 of the high school football regular season. Of course, show presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans. Without them, we cannot do this program and many other things. Of course, they're our big sponsor for the Tennessean Sports Awards, so we really appreciate their sponsorship. But it's week 11, last week of the regular season. We're ready for postseason play, but a big week of high school games across the state. I'm here with Richard McWhirter of the TSSAA. We'll get to him in a moment, but we do have some breaking news today. Big news today out of Middle Tennessee, kind of the southern edge, Fayetteville, who was ruled ineligible. They had a player ruled ineligible, had to forfeit 6 games. They have had an injunction filed. The Chancery Court of in Lincoln County has signed off on this injunction, so they are technically back in the playoffs right now. We'll see, what happens from a court standpoint. That's where we're at right now. I know Richard, in talking to them at the TSSAA, they cannot talk about impending litigation. So I'm not going to ask you directly about what's going on with Fayetteville. I know you can't say anything. Welcome to the show, by the way. Did not plan this when we set this up last week. But just in general, when something like this happens, how does this affect, I know Friday's a big night for y'all. You'll be out there getting all the teams in there. But how does this affect what you guys do on Friday night after week 11?
Well, with something like this, we still have to not only get ready for the playoffs and the brackets, but also deal with the court case that we're coming up with. So we've got to deal with our legal team and work with them. So they're needing things from us. So big week because we've got not only football going on, cross country, and some other championships.
Soccer's next week.
Soccer's next week because it was postponed or being postponed because of weather. So again, it's just something extra that we do have to do at our office. But we're pretty much preparing for the Friday night football. We call it Friday night, preparing for the state championship, and it always starts about 7 o'clock on the last Friday night of the year.
You know me pretty well when it comes to this night. This is like a special night. This is like Christmas to me. I mean, we've exchanged emails about, different scenarios, and the Z plan. I would send you guys scenarios back in the good days, the Z plan that I personally liked. I don't think anyone else really liked the Z plan. I think you guys enjoy the sleep you now have.
I think we do. The Z plan, I think you may have been the only one that really understood it. I think when you finally understood the Z plan, it kind of was pretty easy.
Yeah.
I think most of the schools didn't like the idea of not knowing who they were going to play before midnight on Friday night or 3 in the morning or so on. But yes, Friday night it's a big night for us. I mean, we work all day getting ready for it, and then we have a location we go to that the office
a bunker, right?
A bunker. We don't want anybody to know. We do have you. I think Bradley Lambert, which is our technology coordinator, he has you texting in to us, or tweeting to us if we're making a mistake.
Yeah.
What's going on out there? But we're in a location that we need some privacy where we can get everything worked out, waiting for the scores to come in.
So it's Friday night. Do you guys work all day Friday, or do you just try to do a half day, then take a little relax before the crunch time happens?
Well, this year, part of our staff will be at cross country course getting ready for the state championship because we've got cross country teams coming in at 1 o'clock.
That'd be you? You're the cross country guy, right?
Me and Emily and Bobby. So we'll be there, and then about 4 o'clock I'll leave, head to Murfreesboro. Well, head to our secret location, and
Kreager's house.
And then we'll start getting ready for the scores coming in. About 8:30 our time, we normally start getting the East Tennessee scores in.
So is this like a big party beforehand? Is there like this row of pizza and stuff before the crunch time? I mean, is there a chance to relax before the crunch time?
A little bit of relaxing. We do basically volunteer our spouses there.
Okay.
And normally Mark is dealing with soccer and doesn't get there till about 11 o'clock.
Oh, can you flip your thing up? There you go. There we go. Now we hear you.
Good with that. And Mark's normally coming in about 11 o'clock, but this year, since soccer's postponed a week, he and his wife will be there at 7 o'clock, just like everyone else will.
So it's crunch time, 8:30. You get a kind of, I guess, a break in that. The East Tennessee swarm of scores comes in first.
East Tennessee's coming in first, and the way the scores come in, officials have to text the score in.
Mm-hmm.
We also look at the different sites that have the scores up
Mm-hmm.
so that we're kind of comparing what they've got up to our officials. The athletic directors will have an email link that they can text the scores in also. So we're kind of taking all those scores. We still have to put it in our computer program before we can start looking at who the final standings are in each region.
I know sometimes a score gets flip flopped around. Imagine this is the week you say, guys, you got to make sure you give us the score, the right score, because it's very important. This is the week where you can't really correct it the next day, or if you correct it 2 hours down the road, it may just thrown off everything because you may already have that bracket done.
That is correct. But we be honest with you, we put the scores in. Sometimes we reverse them. I mean that does happen, but people like you and
Mm-hmm.
some of the other media that's out there catch it pretty quick.
Yeah.
Normally before we start looking at the regional standings.
So you got all the scores, but then the other thing is, I mean, I don't know. Do you have to get all the out of state scores beforehand, or can you at least start the brackets and then if it comes up, if it gets to that third tiebreaker, I mean, or how do you worry about that when you get to it?
Well, what we do is if you have worked with us and seen on our website, we've got the ones that basically have a
Mm-hmm.
tiebreaker that's going to end after
Yep.
the first basically overall wins,
Mm-hmm.
or the ones that what we call going to a deep tiebreaker. The ones that go into a deep tiebreaker, Bradley's already preparing. We may need this score.
Yeah.
We may need this score.
Does that
So
mean he reaches out to those schools, or does he?
we
Try to
have
get
in the past reached out to the athletic directors of those schools in different states and say we do need your score. It could affect
Mm-hmm.
one of our playoff teams, and a lot of times we'll get their score.
Mm-hmm.
But if we have to start looking for them, we start looking at media outlets and so on. But we do not. What we looked at on Monday is not a lot of deep tiebreakers that may go into the fourth
Mm-hmm.
or fifth tiebreaker. It's probably going to end at the first or second.
Last year, you guys released the brackets by around 11:30. Ideally, that's pretty good. I mean, because all the scores don't come in till around 10 to 10:30, an hour after the fact. That's pretty good. But how much have you checked and double checked before you guys release that?
Well, we've reviewed a lot this week, and again, Bradley Lambert, our technology coordinator, if he sees something that may be questionable, we're already questioning it now.
Mm-hmm.
But if we get the scores in and then start checking, I mean, we've got some scenarios that 1, 2 may already be set.
Yeah.
So we've already confirmed them now. We don't have to confirm them on Friday night.
I would imagine there are some regions that where it may not be able to go to that third or fourth tiebreaker, but you said, man, there's a lot of different scenarios out of this. I mean, is that something where it's like, okay, we're going to circle this one to make sure that there are too many things that could change one thing?
That is what we do. Mark is real good in our office of taking those scenarios and start saying, all right, this is the scenario that happened. Did we end up with 1, 2, 3, and 4 like we said, well, like we predicted? And if for some reason this is the scenario that happened and we're not 1, 2, 3, and 4 like we predicted, we're basically red flagging it, trying to figure out where we went wrong predicting, or is it correct in the system.
Tom Kreager here with the Bootleg presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans. Here with Richard McWhirter of the TSSAA. You're in charge of football. I know you also have some other responsibilities. You have cross country. You have track and field. Do you have anything in the winter?
I am
Help out
back
with
up in basketball.
Back up in basketball. But football's kind of, and I guess it's you and Mark primarily, Mark
Correct.
Reeves. What for this? I mean, this is the biggest night you guys. I mean, because no other playoff is like this, where it's with all the things and everyone else is 8 teams and it's a lot easier to get to this point. Um, how much easier is it that you're not in the Z plan?
Well, much easier, just because of the unpredictable of what's going on in North Carolina, what's going on in other states. I mean, one of the mistakes we made 5 or 6 years ago was because North Carolina lets their teams play 11 games.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and so we were predicting a team would not have wins of 50% or more. They ended up. We found out later. So the other states do not come in effect as much as they did with the Z plan. And also, if we have a problem in a region, we're only dealing with 5, 6, 8 teams in a region. Not we've messed up over here, so it's affecting someone. If we messed up in the East, it's not affecting the West. And that the Z plan, those things were happening.
Because everyone was quadrants and it's by geography, and it could change the whole. It could be a long ripple effect.
It could.
Now, how many years have you been with the
I'm
school?
starting my 10th year.
It doesn't seem that long.
10
because I remember when you were with Clarksville, the Montgomery school system.
Clarksville Montgomery County School System.
Montgomery
I was county AD there.
How much did that help you? That role help you in what you do now?
I think it helped quite a bit. In that role, I dealt more at the administrative level than you did at the high school role, being an athletic director or even being a coach. All my career, I've pretty much been an administrator. I started out in Houston County in the early '90s, and I taught a couple years before I became assistant principal and coaching. So helping out there where you're dealing with the TSSAA, you're dealing with teams, not just your school being involved, but you're having to deal with 7 or 8 schools and make sure everybody's on the same page and those type things.
The referees, how do you guys go about? I mean, and one thing is people forget. Each round of the playoffs, for the most part, or every round, you have neutral referees, unless it's 2 teams from the same region. Then there may possibly be from the same the regular association. Can you talk about how that process works?
Well, we for just the playoffs, for example, first round is 108 games. So we kind of, Mark and I have sat down and come up with a formula of across the state how many first round games each association should get. We got 13 associations across the state. We basically have given them a number and given the teams that they have during the regular season a number, and we've got to make sure that they are not the same. So if we've got a Murfreesboro that may have a North Central Association playing a Nashville team that's got a Nashville Association, then we've got to bring in, a Clarksville, a Shelbyville, Jackson, or another association in. We travel quite a bit. I mean, we pay mileage for the officials. It's a pretty good amount, but Bernard has always let us basically make sure we bring neutral crews in, even if they may have to travel 150, 200 miles. We'll have Clarksville crews going all the way to Memphis first round, and Nashville crews going all the way to Memphis.
Now, the one thing, and I think I saw a thing on your website, and we've talked a little bit about it, the championship crews. I think those are 8-man crews, right?
7-man on the field,
right.
and then we have clock keeper, and now we've added the play clock keeper. So they bring 9 officials, plus they bring their chain crews.
Okay.
So they'll have 13 officials from the association in the state, and basically they are observed. They are recommended by their supervisors, but they have to be approved by the state office. I've got a couple
That'd be you.
That'd be me. I've got a couple of state supervisors that help me, one in the east, one in the middle, that may go to a game with me, and we'll evaluate. I mean, so 9 weeks of the year or 9 nights of the year. Now, some nights I do get a Thursday night ball game that I am observing a championship crew. We have removed officials that we felt were not strong enough for a championship ball game. And
what are you looking for when you say, hey, this crew is doing the Riverdale-Oakland game? So, okay, I'm going to go over and watch it. What are you looking for to determine, is this crew good enough to do a state championship game?
Well, we have an officials manual that we write, the TSSAA, and actually National Federation is probably going to adopt our 7-man crew manual. So we're making sure that they're abiding by the manual, because if they're doing what the manual says, it's going to put them in the right position. They are watching the correct keys off a snap. The back judge knows which receiver he has coming off the snap, whether he's holding on the line of scrimmage. You'll sometimes see in a 7-man crew a 20-yard flag coming in. Well, that's because that's the key he has, and we're making sure they're in position, but are they watching what they're supposed to be watching? And we're not judging. We're gonna miss a call. I mean, every time they miss them on Sunday, they miss them on Saturday. We're gonna miss a call. we're never going to pull anybody from missing a call, but if they're not in position to make the call, now that's when we're probably saying we need to find someone that's going to do it.
And also,
right.
I think we've talked like their motions, make sure they know what they're doing with the motioning, the right protocol. I mean, it's a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. And now with the 40-second clock, you've got each official who has the ball dead has got to start the 40-second clock by letting someone know it's time to start it, basically with a raised hand or a timeout signal, depending on how the play ended. But we're looking at that. But most of it, are they in the right position? On a 7-man crew, a side judge and field judge is always 15 to 20 yards in front of the play. They never get beat to the goal line. Is that happening? And if it is, we may be telling the supervisor that official may need another year or two before they're ready to come. Let's bring somebody that maybe has been there before or that can replace. But most of the time, we're not replacing very many because they know we're coming. They're studying. It's big. I mean, football, state championship officials, we pay them mileage, we give them a little bit, but be honest with you, most of them would do it for free because they love it. I mean, it's a great atmosphere and a great thing.
Officials, it seems the numbers seem to be going up. I think overall there probably is a shortage, but it seems like the numbers are starting to kind of go up a little bit, and at least some new ones. I guess the big question is, there's a large influx of older officials that may be retiring in the next 3 to 5 years. That might be the biggest issue right now. Is like, hey, can we keep getting more younger kids?
Yeah,
involved?
the younger ones aren't getting involved like they did when I started. I started in 1984. I was right out of high school, and 18 years old, and I started officiating. They're not getting into it now, but I mean, for some people, there are situations. We tried to push sportsmanship. We want coaches, we want players, we want fans to do the right thing, but sometimes it's not. And do they want to take that abuse? And sometimes they don't. But right now we don't really have a shortage when we can't cover the games. I think our shortage is that we may be sometimes putting officials on varsity games that may not be ready for a varsity game. When I first started, again, I may have gotten 1 or 2 varsity games my first 4 or 5 years before I got a full schedule. Now, a young official may get 5 or 6 games first year on the varsity field because of the numbers. And it's not really that our numbers are short, but you got to remember, I mean, you got an 11-week season. People have anniversaries. They've got wives' birthdays. I mean, you got work, where you got to travel.
We got more schools every year, it seems like.
Adding more schools, especially, in the metropolitan areas, adding a lot of charter schools that have football that we have not had in the past, and we got to cover their games also. And so it's thing. If we are pushing for them for good officials. I mean, we would like to have people come, but right now we're not doing bad. It's really funny that sometimes officiating numbers wise, if you have a bad economy, your numbers are up in officials, and a good economy, you're not. And right now we have a good economy, so people aren't looking for that extra job or that extra paycheck. So
and then also I think I guess freshmen and JV, middle school things too. You got to find officials to do those games as well.
That is correct, and that's where you normally want the younger officials to do it. But to be honest with you, a lot of these associations are having to use the older officials too because of numbers. I mean, you look at how many middle schools have football around the state, especially in Middle Tennessee and East Tennessee, and then the JV programs. Used to you had a JV game on Monday, a ninth grade game on Thursday, and maybe a middle school game on Tuesday. Now they're playing about every night of the week. So,
is there a region, going back to the playoffs, is there a region that you can circle and say, man, this might be the biggest headache as far as figuring out the 4, or if it's D? I think D2, to me, D2A West with I think that's with, I guess that's National Christian, that bunch. That one that could get very confusing depending on some of the things. But is there one region you look at and say, whew, we're going to have to double and triple check this one?
I actually, when Bradley and I were going over that on Monday, I really didn't notice one major. Now, again, someone, an outsider looking in, may look at it and say, well, this could happen and this could happen. We give all those scenarios, but sometime if a number 8 seed that's 1-8 is playing a 9-0 team, you can put the scenario in. If they win, this could happen, but it's likely not going to happen.
Yeah, you got to be ready for it just in case that team decides that, hey, we're only going to bring our freshman team this year.
Right.
This week.
Got to be ready, but more times than not, we end up talking about scenarios that never occur.
And I would imagine also you guys would be big proponents if people would actually want to move their games up to Thursday. That would really help the whole process, I would think.
It would help the process. It's not going to happen this year because
Halloween.
I think Halloween one. I think it's like 100% chance of
Yeah.
rain in Middle Tennessee. So I don't see it now. We have had in the past where it's been, a pretty good chance of rain on Friday, and they bumped it to Thursday. And yes, it helps.
Yeah.
It gives us a little more time on Friday during the day to make sure we got the scores in right and that kind of thing. But still, we've got to wait for that last score. And sometimes that last one. The good thing is now I know where every official is at every ball game. So if Bradley looks at me and says we've got a game in Memphis, we got Briarcrest game that we don't have a score on, I can look at the referees. I've got everybody's phone number and we're making phone calls. And I do remind the supervisors that if I have to call in a crew to get a game, they may lose out on a playoff game because it just makes me later on Friday night before I get home.
Exactly. Well, folks, he's Richard McWhirter, Assistant Director at the TSSAA. Thank you for joining us. I know it's been a long day for you guys there. I know it's going to be a long week. But, hey, I mean, you get cross-country on Saturday. I mean, it's just an easy day. Work to about, midnight or so. You get up for an early cross-country.
Early cross-country, and then we have regional meetings starting on Monday that we travel on. So.
Well, we're going to bring up Cecil Joyce. We're going to go over our top 10 games and, I want to thank Richard for joining us. He can sit down on the couch there waiting for us to go through these. We're going to go over our top 10 games of the week. We'll go through these fairly quick, but every one of these games, Cecil, are going to have something to do with the playoff pairings.
Yes.
Game of the week, Baylor, 8-1, 3-1 in Division II AAA East at Brentwood Academy, which is 6-3, 2-2. There is still a scenario out there where or a couple scenarios, I believe, where Brentwood Academy could miss the playoffs. And, you're talking four-time defending state champs in the largest Division II classification. The biggest thing is, if Brentwood Academy wins, they're in the playoffs. If a loss combined with an Ainsworth win over McCallie and Catholic beating Father Ryan, I think that punts them out of the playoffs. So, I think there'll be some scoreboard watching on that sideline, but big game. And Baylor's been helped out a lot by a couple of transfers. Elijah Howard from Knoxville Webb has moved in. He's a talented running back. He's a UT commitment. Nealon Jean, the quarterback, moved in from Franklin County. They're off. Only losses to McCallie, who's the region leader. Brentwood Academy, though, I'll tell you, they got Devin Curtis is back. Probably about 85-90% healthy. Had a bad high ankle sprain. Probably shouldn't played against Catholic, from what Cody White was telling me a few weeks ago. Didn't play against NBA to rest it. Came back this last week. Played really well against Ainsworth in a win over Ainsworth, where he had 2 picks and a touchdown reception. I think Brentwood Academy finds a way to win this game 35-28 because they have the whole mantra of their playoffs have already started. So I think they're in the playoff mode now. They've got a wide receiver come back. I think they're getting healthy. I'm going to say BA 35, Baylor 28.
I don't know how you have the Division II playoffs without Brentwood Academy, but it's a very realistic possibility. Baylor's only lost to McCallie this year. I think most will agree that McCallie's the best team in D2 AAA. That says a lot to me. Even with Curtis back, I've got to go Baylor 28-21.
Springfield at Creekwood. That's Region 5-4A. That's the region championship there. The winner is the region champ. The loser is in 2. Creekwood, I think, is the Springfield. I think Creekwood could possibly go to second. I think Springfield could possibly go to third. They're in, I think, regardless. Interesting game here. It's at Creekwood. Both teams want to run the ball. I think the fact that Springfield can win a region with everything they lost, they graduate their quarterback, graduate Fat Cat, and they graduate their top running back. 3 big-time skill guys in 1 year. I think that's big for them. But I like Creekwood. The Stansbury kid is a heck of a runner for them, and they're having a great year. Could potentially be their first ever region title at Creekwood. I go Creekwood 42, Springfield 34. I do think there'll be points scored.
Creekwood's battle tested this year. I think they've proven against some tough competition. You know, they're 8-1. I think they're for real. I'm also going with Creekwood. I'm gonna say it's gonna be 27-20.
Nolensville, 8-1, 4-0 in Region 4-4A. Marshall County, 7-2, 4-0 in Region 4-4A. It's pretty. This region, we're talking to Richard McWhirter. This region is about as easy as you get. The winner of this game is 1, the loser is 2, and then the other one's Maplewood and Tullahoma. The winner of that one is 3, the loser is 4. So that's about as easy as you're going to get.
There you go, right there.
And I just made that easy. Unless they were already determined, that would be the only thing. So pretty straightforward. Marshall County, it's a great game. They're much improved from a year ago. Of course, Nolensville's been on a roll. Tim Kutris, I would think he would get some Mr. Football consideration in 4A there. He's got like 7 or 8 picks. He's got 8 or so touchdown receptions. Great season by him. Of course, he's the grandson of former Overton coach Nick Kutris. Had a great last 2 years. I think he's got like 15 or 16 interceptions. I do like Marshall County in this game. I think they're really battle tested. They've played their region teams a little bit tougher. I'm going to go Marshall County 21, Nolensville 14.
This is the year of Nolensville. You know, we got a volleyball state championship under their belt. The girls' soccer team is in the state.
Mm-hmm.
So just right along with that, I'm going to stick with Nolensville to win this region championship. I'm going to say Nolensville 20 and 17 for Marshall.
The year of the Knights.
The year of the Knights.
CPA at FRA. Winner, I believe, is the champion in this. CPA of 3-6, 3-0. FRA 7-2, 2-1. CPA loss is going to put them at 2. FRA could slip down to 3, I think. I like CPA in this game. I think their record right now. They're the best three win team in the state. And a couple weeks ago, I said they're the best 2-win team in the state. I think this team is good enough to make some serious run in the playoffs. I think there are a lot of people across this state that see 3 and 6, and they don't see the 6s. The 6 losses include Ensworth, Brentwood, Independence, Ravenwood, ECS, which is probably the best team in D2AA. They've had some tough teams. And I think they're battle tested for the playoffs. I think CPA 24-21.
I think CPA could be the best 3-7 team in playoff history, but I don't think it's going to come to that. I'm also going CPA 24-21.
That's what I said.
Oh, wow.
Good for you.
I honestly wasn't paying attention to your score.
Oh,
I intentionally tried not to listen to what you're saying because I don't want to copy
I
you.
wouldn't listen to me either. Mount Juliet at Hendersonville. Winner is the region champion. Mount Juliet is going to host regardless. There are 2 if they lose. Hendersonville, though, a loss could push them to number 4 and a date with the Oakland Patriots.
Is that incentive enough to win a game? You don't want to face Oakland in the first round.
Oakland.
Last week, Lebanon and Wilson Central went through this thinking the loser was going to have to play Oakland. Now it still might come down to somebody else.
And you and I both know Kevin Creasy fairly well. And he'll probably tell you the last thing he wants to see is Hendersonville in the first round of playoffs. He doesn't like playing teams a second time in the same season.
No, I don't blame him. I mean, that when you're the superior team, you don't want to give another team an entire season to figure out what they did wrong the first time.
I think it's not gonna. I think it could matter. I think Mount Juliet 38, Hendersonville 28. Mount Juliet's had some personnel issues. They have a new quarterback. The starting quarterback for the season is no longer with them. 38-28, Mount Juliet over Hendersonville.
Trey Perry teams always get better as the years go on. I'm buying into that as well. I'm going to say Mount Juliet in a lower scoring game. I'm going to say 21-13.
The thing with Hendersonville, people say, well, they're 4-5. What happened? Well, you take Oakland out, okay? Gallatin was a 19-point loss, I think. They have 2 1-point losses and a 7-point loss. So they have 3 of their 5 losses are by 1 score or less. Gallatin is very much improved, as well documented on this show, and then Oakland's Oakland. So their losses are deceiving, but I think Mount Juliet is just better. Here's an interesting one. East Robertson 5-4, 3-1 in their region at Watertown 7-2, 4-0. Watertown, if they win, they're the region champs. Pretty cut dry. Trousdale County, though, if they're still in the running for this championship. If East Robertson defeats Watertown and Trousdale beats Jackson County, and Richard can correct me if he hears any of these things are wrong. I believe Trousdale is your number one. If Jackson County somehow pulls that upset out, and then East Robertson wins, then East Robertson would be the region champion. I think Watertown takes care of business. I like Watertown, but I think a rematch with Trousdale is coming, and that will be a must-watch playoff game. I think Watertown 42, East Robertson 14.
Watertown's having an excellent year. I mean, they're coming off of just a 1-point loss to a very good Upperman team. So I think they're ready for this game. They want to win this region title. They don't want to leave anything up to other teams to decide. I think it's going to be a blowout as well. I think Watertown wins 35-10.
And their only other loss, they lost to Upperman, then they lost to Nolensville. So those are two quality losses there, if there is such a thing as a quality loss. Independent 6-3, 3-1 in Region 6-6A. They traveled to Ravenwood, 8-1, 3-1. I think a lot of us thought Ravenwood was the best team in 6-6A all season, and then Brentwood beat them and proved us otherwise. The winner of this game is second. The loser is third. Independence coming off a tough loss to Pearl. Of course, that was in a monsoon, so you don't know. They didn't throw the ball very well at all. I like Ravenwood. I think they're starting to kind of get things fixed. 35-14 over at Independence.
Independence's offense is capable of putting up a lot of points. It's evidenced by 49 points against Blackman earlier in the season, but Ravenwood's defense is awful good. They held Cane Ridge to 15 points last week. If you can hold Cane Ridge to 15, your defense is playing well. I'm going to go in a little bit of a defensive game in this one as well. I'm going to go 20-10 Ravenwood.
Okay. This game's yours. Stewart's Creek 8-1, 4-1 in Region 5-6A. They travel to Smyrna 5-4, 4-1 at the house that Robert L. Rakes built. This is your game of the week, I believe.
It is.
So give me the preview on this one.
Well, you've got, still pretty young Stewart's Creek program. They've played Smyrna 6 times since the school opened. Smyrna's won all 6 of them. One really close game a couple of years ago was a 1-point game. But there's been some blowouts in that. And so it comes to the point of, even though a lot of people view you as a better team this year, which Stewart's Creek's ranked 9th in the state in 6A, so people would say they're a better team right now. Can you get over that proverbial hump of beating a rival that you haven't beaten before, that has owned you, more or less? That's going to be the biggest key for Stewart's Creek. I think talent-wise, they're both fairly equal teams. They both love doing the same thing. They love running the ball. They both have depth in the running back position, and they love hanging on their defense. So this is going to be, I think, probably somewhat similar to the 2017 game where it was 15-14. But I'm going to say Stewart's Creek's going to come out on top in this one. I think Coach Burt Brown's got this team believing in themselves. I think they're going to have a great game plan going in, and I'll say 20-16 Stewart's Creek.
The winner of this game is second. The loser of this game is third. The Jokes kid's been fun to watch. I am going to go against the grain here. I'm going to go Smyrna 28-24. Kind of what we talked about. They've won 6 straight. They know how to win this game. This coaching staff has been in tight games before.
And they don't want to play Ravenwood, which I think they believe will be the number 2 team.
Yeah,
they've already played them 2 weeks ago, and it wasn't pretty. So
Yeah.
I think that's the incentive.
Yeah, that's the incentive, and I somehow I think they find a way to win this game. I think the Jokes kid may be the best offensive player on the field this night. We talked about the other matchup at Ensworth, 6-3, 2-2 in D2 AAA East at McCallie, 8-1, 4-0. McCallie coming off a loss to Clearwater, Florida Academy, I think. Ensworth wins, and they're guaranteed a spot in the playoffs. If not, they could be the odd team outside. That's the one thing that I do like, how the Division II committee recommended that they don't bring all schools to the playoffs. That has made this D2 AAA bracket in this race really interesting to watch. And I wish the other D2 regions would take a hard look at what they're doing. I don't think, I just don't think you should be guaranteed a spot in the playoffs just because the season started and everyone's in. That's something where Mr. McWhirter can look into that. But I just think it's the fact that you could have a BA out, you could have an Ensworth out, you could potentially have a Catholic out. One of those 3 teams that is very, very talented is not making the playoffs.
Is there any chance both could be out? Now, Ensworth or Brentwood? One's in, right?
One is in because Father Ryan is out.
Okay.
So Father Ryan's out, and one of the other 3 is going to be out. So you're going to either have Ensworth, Knoxville Catholic, and Brentwood Academy not make the playoffs.
That's 3 awful good teams for one of them to be sitting at home.
And think about all the college talent. And people say, well, they just didn't make the playoffs. those teams are very talented. They put them in the 6As, the 5As, the 4As. They do very well.
Well, look at what McCallie was. Knox Catholic did to Independence last week. Is that who they played?
Played Brentwood last week.
Brentwood last week.
Pretty solid. I like McCallie to win this game 28-20. I think this is a really good game. This is where the Keyshawn Lawrences of the world for Ensworth is going to have a big game. They got the quarterback Gerard Bullock is going to have a big game. Andrew Turrentine is going to have a good game there. Some defensive players, they're going to have to play their best game of the season right now, and I guess you could say their playoffs have started.
I don't know how good this team from Florida was, but I have a hard time seeing McCallie lose 2 in a row, so I'm going with McCallie. I'm going to say they win 28-21.
Last game, Lewis County 7-1, 3-1 in Region 5 2A. They're at Forest 9-0, 4-0. Again, winner is number 1. The loser is probably 2, could slip down to 3, depending on the school. Lewis County could drop down to Lewis County could potentially drop to 3, I believe, with a loss. Forest, I believe, is a 1 or a 2. I believe the scenarios, if memory serves me right.
Summertown with a win and a Lewis County loss would finish second.
Yes, and so that's an interesting thing there. I like this Forest team. They're 9-0, trying to get to undefeated regular season. I think it's a close one. I think it's 20-14.
I think the top 4 teams in this region have all been fairly close this year.
Yeah.
That's Lewis County lost to Summertown, which is why Summertown would have second in this scenario. Forest has just been outstanding. I don't think a lot of people saw this coming. I think they thought they would have a good year, but to win the region championship, I think it's a surprise to a lot of people.
I think it's a low-scoring game too.
I would agree with that. I'm gonna go with Forest 20-13.
Okay. Well, folks, I went 5-5 last week, 68-32 for this season. That's not up to my standards. Hopefully, we'll pick better this week. One thing of note, folks, we will have a special bootleg after dark, a playoff edition. This man here will join me. George Robinson will also join the crowd. We're going to talk playoffs. We're probably going to start around midnight. We're hoping that my friends at the TSSAA will have those brackets done by about 11:30. So we'll have, for the second year in a row, we'll have a late night show where we're going to be breaking down the playoffs, talking about key games, maybe do some foreshadowing and things. So it's going to be a
Are you buying
night.
the pizza?
I am in the office Friday night, so I am making buffalo chicken dip. That's pretty good, folks. Buffalo chicken dip. Making it here, special recipe. Folks, that's it for the bootleg presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans. We'll see you late Friday on a special edition.